Hi, my name is Jessica Quiros, and my presentation is on the film American History X. Why I chose this film was that it has a strong family concept as well as a conflict. The story is focused on two brothers and how an older brother has great influence on the younger brother, starting at a very vulnerable age. The Vineyard family as a family consists of a mother, Doris, older son, Derek, daughter, Davina, younger son, Danny, and a baby, Allie. What is important to understand is that there is not a father in the home anymore. It's a little backstory is that the father, Dennis, was actually shot doing his duty as a fireman, putting out a fire in a lower scale community. Unfortunately, this sparks a influence over Derek, and Derek grows a strong hatred towards minorities and those of Lower America. Unfortunately, his belief is that anyone who is not white Protestant is a burden to society, or what Derek considers a parasite. The concepts that I've chosen were socialization, starting at home and family, racism and discrimination surrounding that, as well as resocialization and the morals behind that, and how they grow. Like I said, family is very the major focus in my chosen film. You see right here on the left, this is their home as growing up. Unfortunately, it didn't stay that way. You see the bottom right corner. It's a very important scene where the mother, Doris, is dating the gentleman to her right. His name is Murray, and he is a Jewish teacher. He's an English teacher. And he has some opinions on what happened to Rodney King. Unfortunately, Derek is biased in his opinion that the police were entitled to do their duty, and he did not believe that Rodney King's voice was to be heard in any way. This scene becomes very violent. Derek feels the need to protect his family and becomes pretty violent towards his younger sister to set an example to make sure Murray feels unwelcome. This brutal scene right here is a very important scene that happens not that long after that dinner. Trauma enters the home because Derek held some beef towards this gentleman in a gang, which Derek refers to as a monkey. Fortunately, gentleman falls into the typical robbing of the truck. He tries to rob Derek's truck. Danny wakes Derek up, and Derek acts more on his anger and his hatred towards those minorities than rational. So, in an attempt to defend the home, it becomes quite brutal, and Derek brutally murders this gentleman by what they call a curb stop. Derek has a great influence over Danny, and it's very clear. It starts when Danny is 14 years old. Danny goes along with Derek and his secondary group that he begins called the DOC, which is a group meant to establish a sense of security over the now quite violent streets of Long Beach, California. Danny sees quite a lot of violence and actions taken by this group, such as vandalizing a grocery store that is run by a Chinese man who took over a store that once was significant to Derek growing up. Derek feels the need to protect blue-collar America, and Danny has fallen into these trends. Unfortunately, while Derek is away in prison, Danny is being influenced by the peer group that Derek has started, and even being greatly influenced by the leader, which is Cameron Alexander. Danny inherits quite a lot of bad habits. He shaves his head in an act of solidarity towards his neo-Nazi group. He smokes, drinks, and it doesn't make it easy to stop, of course, because his mother does smoke and drink also. Left as a single mother, the home becomes quite put in disarray. She loses the house, and they are placed into a small apartment. It's very important to understand that while Derek was away, he was going through his own thing, and he asked the family not to visit him because it was too hard. The first picture you see, Derek was feared as the quote-unquote skinhead, the leader of the group. In the middle, you see he was fearful because he is placed in prison, pretty much set to the bottom. And in this scene right here, he is pretty much talked down to in the same way that everyone else is. Derek gets a job in the laundry room with this gentleman here named Lamont. And at first, he is very quick to ignore Lamont, completely not conversate with him or communicate with him in any way. But Lamont is persistent. Lamont continues to joke around and try to make conversation to pass the time with Derek. Derek is quick to make friends with an Aryan Brotherhood. They're in the prison, feeling secure with that. Unfortunately, they are not firm in their beliefs, and they actually make business with the Hispanics and even Black community. And Derek has a big problem with this because he feels this is quite offensive, and it is a contradiction to what they believe in. Derek eventually turns his back on his group and starts to understand a little bit more about his place in society. Unfortunately, the Aryan Brotherhood do not agree. They are very upset with Derek, and they brutally attack him and even rape him in the shower. Unfortunately, this really wakes Derek up, and Derek starts to communicate slowly with Lamont and actually finds out that Lamont's story is significant. Lamont was actually incarcerated due to the fact that he was attempting to steal a television. And on his way out, a policeman came and stopped him. He dropped the TV out of fear, and it fell on the policeman's foot. Unfortunately, this cost Lamont time, and the policeman pressed charges and accused him accused him of assaulting a policeman, and of course that took a lot of time. Derek was lucky though in his time in prison. His English teacher, Sweeney, came and visited him at a very vulnerable time in this very powerful and important scene. Sweeney communicated to Derek how his role in society has contributed no one, especially with his anger and hate. Derek and Danny both are very bright and smart young people, and Sweeney sees that. Unfortunately, he understands that how they have an understanding of life and their socialization with others has been detrimental, and it is important to understand that Derek, in that moment, realized he was not contributing to society. Danny was asked by Sweeney to write a paper, and it was really important that he understood what it took for Derek to be incarcerated and what served a purpose. So right here is a very important quote that Danny puts in his paper by Abraham Lincoln. And he says, "We are not enemies, but friends. We must not be enemies. Through passion may have strained, it must not break our bonds of affection. The mystic chords of memory will swell when again touched, as surely they will be, by the better angels of our nature." It's very important to understand that a moral was clarified here. Denny is very clear on what is right and wrong. Unfortunately, though, in the group, the DOC, he was pushed to understand that whites were supreme and that anyone that is not white Protestant doesn't belong. Fortunately, Derek was able to learn from his experience. Unfortunately, he was too late to explain this to Danny. Here, Derek tries to explain to Danny how he wants better for him and how Danny should take an opportunity to contribute to his education rather than that of society and their negative effects. But like I said, unfortunately, Danny has made his own enemies. And this gentleman here, by the name of Little Henry, is part of a gang, feels the need to defend his turf in the school. And Danny wants to defend another peer, blows smoke into Little Henry's face, and that is quite a offense. Little Henry returns to school the day after Derek returns and shoots Danny. Unfortunately, this ends in tragedy. We don't know exactly what happens next, but one can hope that Derek learns from this experience rather than building on hate. American History X was distributed by New Line Cinema, released October 30th, 1998, an American crime drama film directed by Tony Kaye and written by David McKenna. This film is fictional, but based off the childhood of David McKenna growing up in San Diego. It's really important to understand that socialization can be positive or negative, starting at home, growing into your peer groups and secondary groups. And socialization is not permanent. One can be resocialized. The effects of racism and discrimination can be severe and consequential. But if given the right support and protection, society could be improved. Thank you so much.